everybody. Thank you for being here. Thank you to Marisol, Cynthia, everybody. It's just my pleasure. I'm Jere Boudell. I'm actually a plant ecologist, but I love playing with technology. I'm also an associate dean of the College of STEM at Clayton State University. And our university serves a predominantly underserved population, mostly first-generation students. And so you can think of this as like a case study of how or our efforts and how we're implementing them to help improve AI literacy for not only our student populations, but our faculty, as well as our surrounding community of high school students. Okay, so one of our first examples I want to cover and really provide some of the important take-home messages was a student AI and app development camp followed by a hackathon because I love hackathons. They're really great, basically project-based learning when you hook them up to like a code camp. And this was focused mostly on our C-STEM students, but it was multidisciplinary. So we had biology students, IT, computer science, et cetera. And our goals were to use the app development cycle as a way to explore innovating with technology or that creative problem solving, exercise programming skills, as well as increase AI literacy. Now we did a pretty intense program, 6 days, about 9 to 2:30 each day. And the AI component of our program focused on prompt engineering, which we're all discovering is really, really important, ethics, AI applications, and then AI and app development. Thank you, MIT App Inventor, because we used that platform in our classroom. It was really great. So what are some of the key insights that we learned? Well, one, something that we keep finding in these workshops and camps is that it's pretty important to allow open discussion about AI in whatever form that takes, whether that's concerns, hopes for the future, etc. Really important. We got a lot of good information and feedback through that. Another was to help students actually develop a deeper understanding of how AI works, so like an intuitive understanding of what's happening, and also allowing them to explore AI in its variety of platforms rather than just one. That was really helpful for critical thinking and creativity as well, just interacting with it in different ways. But also what we saw was recognizing some of the pitfalls of over-reliance. And one of the good examples, really a great one, was during the hackathon, one of our teams, of course, wanted to try out that whole new vibe coding thing during the hackathon, right? Where they're just like relying on the AI to help guide them as they develop using App Inventor. So if anybody wants to talk to me about vibe coding with App Inventor, that was an experience. But one of the problems, of course, that they ran into was that they had a hard time understanding the code and a hard time actually executing the project, which then led to problems with debugging. So it was a really great example of what can happen when you basically pass the knowledge, the expert level skills to AI versus you being the one in control. So it was really great. So our take-home message was developing AI literacy through deeper understanding, really good hands-on experience on a variety of platforms, and holding space for reflection was really important. We then followed that up with a faculty workshop for our STEM faculty, again, multidisciplinary across the fields, which was really interesting. And our goal, again, was to increase AI literacy, upskill our faculty so that they could develop the skills that they need, and then explore AI applications. And when I say AI, I'm mostly talking about generative AI here in academia. We did a 3-day workshop, 21 hours in 3 days for our faculty, and we did this in collaboration with some Googlers, thank you, as well as some of our computer science faculty who were skilled in machine learning and AI. We focused on generally AI fundamentals, again, trying to help them develop an intuitive understanding of how AI functions. Prompt engineering, which again becomes just such a critical skill for people when they're working with generative AI. Ethics, as well as practical tools, so like Vertex AI, AI Studio, Gemini, ChatGPT, etc. We had a wonderful discussion, which was very lively, loved it, right, about the concerns that faculty were having as they're noticing their students using AI in their classrooms pretty commonly. For example, some of the issues were cheating, cognitive offloading, so the stuff that we're talking about already, de-skilling, ethics. But the hopes then were, well, how do I integrate it into my classroom using best practices in terms of education? And so our key insights, of course, that I'm going to bring up too, is that prompt engineering is critical for our faculty. If we're asking them to implement AI in the classroom and develop a really good, for example, active learning activities, learning strategies, then they need to have that good understanding of AI so they can integrate it seamlessly into their classroom. And then during these workshops, allow them to play with various AI tools and platforms, not just one, because then they start to think a little more creatively about, oh, I could use this for that, or maybe I could use this for this other thing. And then providing, again, that space for just discussion to talk about fears, but also hopes, right? Because we do have a lot of positive outcomes from using generative AI. So our take-home message, of course, is let's make our faculty more like power users of AI, even if they're just, get them to move from beginner to intermediate level so they can think and use their expertise as educators to integrate it seamlessly again into their classrooms. But also, in their research and workflow, as was brought up just a little bit ago about, well, how can this help our faculty meet their objectives? Some of the big issues, of course, that we're all talking about now is cognitive offloading and, unfortunately, short-circuiting essential learning processes. But we can address that. We're educators. We know how to assess our students and where they're struggling in some areas and then how to address that. So I think that we can start to develop an AI-infused pedagogy, kind of like how we have active learning, but infusing it with AI, so incorporating best practices in our classroom. And I think we're starting to see that develop now. And then, of course, implementing what we would call embedded checkpoints. If we know there's a danger of cognitive offloading and de-skilling, then maybe we should start to check for that in our classrooms, and we can do that by just creating questions and embedding them in our exams, for example, and then tracking that and seeing if we're starting to see that decline so that we can address it. Another one is to help our students and our faculty develop an AI metacognition, kind of like we have learning metacognition. And in this case, if we're relying on AI, good, because we're using it more, we're integrating it. Is it impacting our cognitive processing? Are we de-skilling? Are we losing some of our skills? And being aware of that so we can address it as it's happening. And I think as we're having these important conversations, we can then develop those programs and develop those activities to help us address these issues. So yes, teach our faculty and our students how to use AI. When and why is pretty important, but also AI metacognition and implementing best practices in education with AI. One of our initiatives that kind of emerged out of this, these experiences of running these camps and workshops, was we want to start the AI Institute. I'm sure that's probably an idea for a number of universities right now. Because we're a smaller regional university and serving our particular student population, we want to make sure that we have a collaborative approach as we start this initiative to develop our AI Institute. We also want to make sure it's multidisciplinary, not only so that we're serving all of our faculty, but because they also bring in really important and different perspectives that can help us build something that's really great. And because, again, and I'm sure some of you are coming from smaller schools and universities, these external partnerships are really important and will help us make sure that we are meeting AI equity goals, right? So that we have access to quality education and actually access to compute resources. And so on that, I love this image because it's so ubiquitous now, right? for AI. Everywhere you go, AI, there's that handshake. And going back to that title for this talk, Mind Over Machine, which is what we're all doing here during the summit, right? We're engaging AI thoughtfully. And on that note, thank you so much.